Let me make something very clear. I don't do this program or my TV show or my Blaze show or write books for the left wing, for the Marxists, for the media. I do it for you and people who actually care about this country. They've now revealed themselves. Donald Trump's attack on the American media have actually been mild. And then their little creepy Democrat Party-funded sites like Mediaite and Media Matters and many more than that, they've all now exposed themselves as hating our country and supporting our enemies, foreign and domestic. They're out there publicly. Their names are now known. Their organizations are now known. Their donors, for the most part, are known. Now we know who they are. The same people who want to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life, by the way. I keep hearing this line, well, Hamas, that's not all the Palestinian people. Hamas is just some. And I guess that goes for the Palestinian Authority, which is run by a terrorist, Islamic Jihad, and all the rest. It's not the Palestinian people. It's these terrorist groups that just happen to take over all these territories, all these countries, and so forth. And the Palestinians can't rise up and overthrow them. Let me just say this. This has been going for a very, very long time. A very, very long time. So where are all the Palestinians between the wars and during the wars who set up groups in the United States or elsewhere condemning what has taken place? I know there's a few. A few. And look at the disgusting hypocrisy. The media that covered World War II never even asked these questions. Never even put forward these opinions. Look, the people in Germany, they're not all Nazis. They can't help it. What are they supposed to do? The people in Japan, they're not all kamikazes, you know. What are the people of Japan supposed to do? And on and on and on. Why is this even on the radar? If the Israelis wanted to blow every Palestinian in the Middle East off the face of the earth, they would have done it already. How come over at CNN and MSNBC and the New York Slimes and the Washington Compost and all the others, Reuters and AP, how come they never mention if the Israelis wanted to destroy the Palestinians, they have the wherewithal to do it, and they would do it now before anybody else gets nukes? How come they don't say that? And how come our media previously didn't ask the questions or make the statements that the media today do? And how come we had presidents before who conducted themselves much differently than Joe Biden? I know what's going on behind the scenes when Biden talks to the Israelis, when Blinken's over there. We're going to have a guest on, Carolyn Glick, one of the great columnists in Israel, explain to us some of what's going on behind the scenes. Have you asked yourself, why do they keep going to Israel to show solidarity with Israel? Well, why are they meeting with the Palestinian Authority? Why are they meeting with the Jordanians? Why are they meeting with all these people? To keep the peace? What are they telling Israel behind the scenes? Israel really can't criticize the Biden administration. It wants the arms. It's that simple. It wants the arms. But to watch Jake Tapper over the weekend, I didn't watch him, I heard little clips. He is a disgusting Tokyo Rose type. He just is. Civilians are civilians, he says. Really? The problem is Hamas doesn't look at it that way. Civilians, their own people, are fodder. The Jews need to be burned, literally. Decapitated, dismembered, and burned. You have to be one cold-blooded SOB to be Jake Tapper. Or the rest of the American media. It's sickening. They covered up the Holocaust, and now they're playing moral equivalency here. Jake, show me one Palestinian baby who's been decapitated by the IDF. Just show me one. Show me one. And, of course, we have a fifth column in our own country, and the media is a big part of that. And we've set ourselves up for this. We've allowed these colleges and universities to take all of our money, and then under the rubric of academic freedom and free speech, which they don't honor and don't respect, we're told we can't touch them. Of course we can touch them. We can defund them, something I've been talking about now for several years, including in American Marxism. We have no obligation to fund a fifth column that supports Marxism, the communist Chinese with their institutes, and Hamas and the other terrorists with their organizations. We have no responsibility to protect them. And people who seek to destroy America and participate in terrorism, they don't have free speech rights to be funded by us and have platforms in colleges and universities. I mean, our government is arresting pro-lifers who protest in front of abortion clinics. How many Hamas terrorists and those with links to terrorists have been arrested for protesting anywhere for anything? They're throwing January 6 protesters. I'm not even talking about people who are violent, who went in the building, came out of the building, kind of starry-eyed. Others who were on the property, they're throwing them in the brink for years at a time. But what about these college campuses and their breeding of terrorism? And the funding of Confucius Institutes? And these students for peace in Palestine, or whatever the hell they call themselves. There's a piece called The Hamas Network in America, A Short History, by extremism.gw.edu, Lorenzo Vidino, published this month. He better watch his back because nobody's safe anymore. Now, here's what he says about Hamas. It's the very, very small thumbnail sketch. He says, Hamas supporters have long operated in the United States. Internal Hamas documents and FBI wiretaps, introduced as evidence in various federal criminal cases, clearly show the existence of a nationwide Hamas network engaged in fundraising, lobbying, education, and propaganda dissemination dating back to the 1980s. You know, it's refreshing that we once had an FBI that did this sort of thing. FBI basically saying MAGA Republicans are the greatest threat we face because they're right-wingers. Same with our intelligence agencies that are going more and more domestic. It's a disgrace. The network formalized its existence in 1988 when it created the Palestine Committee in the U.S. But don't worry, all Palestinians aren't bad. The committee's goals included, quote, increasing the financial and the moral support for Hamas, fighting surrendering solutions, and publicizing the savagery, I'm quoting, of the Jews. And, of course, the American media has digested all of it. Right, Jake Tapper? Right, Andrea Mitchell? The Palestine Committee spawned several public-facing organizations, most of which are based out of Chicago, Dallas, and Washington, D.C. They included the All-Purpose Islamic Association of Palestine, the financial arm represented by the Occupied Land Fund, which later became the Holy Land Foundation, and the think tank United Association of Studies and Research. In 1993, the FBI wiretapped a meeting of top Hamas activists in the U.S. held in Philadelphia. I've talked about this many times. The wiretap showed internal discussions on how to improve activities in support of Hamas within the United States and how to shield them from the designation of Hamas as a terrorist organization. U.S.-based Hamas activists agreed that hiding their affiliation and intentions was the best tactic to avoid negative consequences. Quote, "I swear by Allah that war is deception," said one senior leader. "Deceive, camouflage, pretend that you're leaving while you're walking that away. Deceive your enemy. Let's not hoist a large Islamic flag, and let's not be barbaric talking. We will remain a front, so that if the thing the United States government ban on Hamas happens, we will benefit from the new happenings instead of having all of our organizations classified as exposed." And by the way, one of the groups they created at that meeting was CAIR, C-A-I-R, which has a solid link to the Democrat Party, and for years was providing training to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. For years had ties to the Clinton administration and the Obama administration. Over the years, U.S. authorities have conducted several activities to clamp down on the network, including deporting and prosecuting Hamas operatives and shutting down multiple front organizations. The 2001 designation of the Holy Land Foundation and subsequent prosecution of part of its leadership for funneling $12.5 million to Hamas constitutes to date the largest successful terrorism financing prosecution in U.S. history. CAIR, by the way, was named an unindicted co-conspirator. Oh, they had checks and they had other things, but they just figured they couldn't convict them beyond a reasonable doubt. Why? I don't know why. Yet U.S.-based Hamas networks and individuals have displayed a remarkable resilience, and many of the core activists of the Palestine Committee are still engaged in various forms of support, albeit at times purely political and not material for Hamas. Individuals and networking providing various forms of support for Hamas have been active in America for decades. Small numbers of Palestinians who belong to Muslim Brotherhood networks in the Gaza Strip and West Bank, in fact, arrived in the U.S. since the 60s to study at American universities or as immigrants and refugees. Hamas, as its charter states, is, quote, one of the wings of the Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine. That's Hamas. Over time, from the official foundation of Hamas in 1987 onwards, this network increasingly organized itself, creating a relatively large set of public-facing organizations devoted to activities such as funding, lobbying, education, dissemination of propaganda, much like the American media, I might add, since the U.S. government first designated Hamas as a terrorist organization in 1997. U.S. authorities have conducted several activities to clamp down on the network, but it's not working, is it? No. In the months following the 1987 formation of Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood branches and offshoots throughout the world activated themselves to assist the newly formed organization. According to internal documents released in the federal court case, in 1988, the head of the Palestine section of Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East traveled to the United States. We met with fellow Muslim brothers to seek their support. The result of the meeting was the formation of this Palestine Committee of the Muslim Brotherhood in America, a subgroup of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States, made up mostly of members of Palestinian origin. They said their purpose, Palestine, is the one for the Muslim Brotherhood, prepared armies made up from the children of Islam and the Arab and Islamic nations to liberate its land from the abomination and the defilement of the children of the Jews. The Palestinians never, ever had claim to the land they are on right now.